Imagine yourself under a starry sky, around the warm glow of a sacred fire, where speakers gather to share their wisdom and insights. Creating a sacred space where all are welcome to warm their hands. Here are your hosts, Sarenth, Odinson, Snow, Cabra, and Emily Streaking Fate. Discuss spirituality, mythology, animism, and culture around a virtual sacred fire. Won't you join us around Grandfather Fire?
Hail to the winds. Hail to the gods and goddesses of the land. Hail to our hearth keepers. Hail to our blessed dead. Hail to all of our spirits. Hail to the keepers of the mysteries as we walk down our paths. Hail to those who guide us and keep us. May our learning progress. May our teaching progress. May our communities grow and share. Love and blessings to all. Best Thuhao.
Welcome to another Around Grandfather Fire. This is episode 154 with my good friends and co-hosts Snow and Emily Streaking Fate. How are you both doing tonight?
I am good. I am less tired than I have been. I have been working on music. It has been a day. I did some reading, I drank some coffee, and now I am here. How are you, Emily?
I am doing well. I am mostly over my cold this week and spent some time outside enjoying the sun and the weather, although recently we've had some storms, which has been fun to enjoy from the inside. A lot of ancestor stuff lately. So trying to spend a bit more time with the dead. How about you, Sarenth?
Well, I'm finally back to work. That was fun for certain factors of fun. Um, I've been been keeping busy enough doing things on my WordPress, my Substack. Um, I've got all of my various topics and prayers written for the month, so they'll be rolling out with the following Wednesdays. Um, I have done the workshop on Yggdrasil and heathen cosmology. I did that last Wednesday with Witches Night Out. That was a lot of fun. For those who are interested in that, I have links in the Discord for that. There's a full recording of it, and the next workshop that I have lined up is, I believe, that's next month. Next month is Basics of Sather. This month is Basics of Lanvatir. So, uh, establishing a practice with your local land spirits. And then next month will be Basics of Sather, which is performing heathen magic, specifically to do with working with spirits. So that's the kind of stuff that's been on my mind. Feeling pretty productive and doing pretty good overall.
Nice. I mean, it's cool that you have all that lined up, and there's a lot of topics you've been doing talks and workshops on for a while. Is it kind of the same ones again, or do you find that they've been evolving?
Um, as far as the workshops go,
Mm-hmm. Because like you've done ones on Sailor before and ones on Spirits and Vative before. Is it the same or
no. So like when it came to part of the challenge of like doing some of these workshops where you're talking about the basics is you're literally having to go back to basics. Like, what does it mean to do a basic form of interaction with the Landvatir or the Landvater? So part of the challenge for me is like I've been doing this for so long that sometimes I forget like kind of forget unless you're actually like trying to keep yourself current in your head or you're trying to talk to people about it. Like you kind of start to lose focus on what basics are because your baseline for basics kind of shifts over time. because what seems like 101 to you um might be the advanced stuff for somebody else. So like going back and getting a gauge on, hey, is this actually basic? Is this actually advanced, or am I just like at a point where this feels one way or the other? So like the some of the Vatir workshops that I've put on, we'll go over some of the basics of specific spirits. Like my digging in the Dvergar workshop digs into a lot of the like the lore, and then it gives a hands-on practical how to contact and make a relationship with them. But the basics of Lanvatir is like reminding people that spiritual hygiene is a thing, and to actually go outside if you want to work with Lanvatir. You can do it inside with your Hustvatir, but you know, literally touching grass is a valid practice for establishing connection with the land spirits.
Nice. Well, speaking of valid practices of varying assortments and stripes, should we introduce today's surprise mystery guest uh,
Oh,
as a surprise alternative to Dr. Al Cummins, who unfortunately had some family stuff come up, but we wish him the best. And yeah,
absolutely. So, thank you, for Dr. Cummins, for letting us know. Hopefully, everything works out for the best. And I want to thank you, Jason, for joining us. Jason is a Greek polytheist, an initiate of the Toys of Dionysos, and our very own producer. He's helped produce the show the last 2 years through producing sound effects, sound engineering, excuse me. And when Sarenth moves his mic around, he's taken time out of his life to come over, adjust the mic, and yell at Sarenth to stop moving the damn thing. So we love, appreciate, and welcome you to Run Grandfather Fire on this side of things. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, hello, and thank you for being here. And don't worry, it's all good. It's all good. Whenever things go wrong with the microphone, just let me know. So far, it's been good.
his producer Jason is the one that I actively encourage to break into Sarenth's house and move his microphone so that his audio setup is good.
Yep. Hey, so far, the absolute worst thing that Sarenth has done was thinking that he was messing with the gain and was just absolutely just sending it to complete, like the directional portion of the mic was just facing the wrong direction. That's only
Oh,
happened once.
I've been
that's good
podcasting for
then.
12 years, folks. This is professional grade shit right here.
It's recording into the back of the microphone.
Just because it's a very nice. It allows for directionality. It's a nice microphone. Unfortunately, if it's not pointed the right way.
Mm.
Yeah, if you click that direction button, it will try to take it from every side instead of the one you want it.
Mhm. And pretty much every other issue has just been Zoom and or other forms of audio media being like, oh, see, we have this nice microphone setup, and instead we're going to use webcam microphone.
Yeah, pro.
Why are we doing that? We had an update, and that's why.
That or we invite our favorite Oregonian Freemason on who brings his guitar
Well,
and
that's fair.
suddenly we're going, so Reverend Eric would like you to insert this sound clip and this sound clip and
I will freely
actually
admit that was a lot of fun. I had a
good.
lot of fun actually going back and putting those sound bites
So
in.
what I hear is more podcasts need more keytar.
I mean,
Most
Rev
things in
Eric would
life need more
agree.
keytar. Well, most things are improved with the keytar.
I mean, the last time I went out with Rev Eric, he took a stylophone with him, so we just sat at bars playing stylophones.
What the?
Nice.
See, now I gotta look up the hell a stylophone is because I'm thinking xylophone and that doesn't sound right.
It's like a little box with like piano type key markings on it, and then you push like a stylus to it, and it makes electronic sounds to different
Oh,
pitches.
Mhm.
it's like a theremin.
Yeah,
Kinda.
it's it's more key based than a theremin is.
So John,
Bowie used one.
okay, okay, yeah. Apparently, Kraftwerk did too.
Mm-hmm.
Neat.
Yeah. So Rev Eric just taking one of those as we're going around pubs in Portland drinking and playing that, and because what else are you gonna do when you go drinking with a Freemason?
Honestly,
Fair, honestly.
Yeah.
Particularly in Portland. That makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
even feel like it would be that out of character.
I mean, the phrase is keep Portland weird for a reason.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been out to Portland a few times, and I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Oh, it's a very very fun town. Younger brother lives out that way, and
Uh,
just like it's always just like go whenever we'd go out there, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go into Portland. I mean, it's a trip.
yeah, and there's a lot of pagan-y shops out there too, which is really cool, and the occult bookshop and whatnot.
That
It's a good tour.
yeah, the a lot of occult bookshops, the absolutely massive used bookstore that
Ooh.
my wife had a very fun time in. Nothing like shipping back 3 boxes of books.
Holy shit.
It's a
Oh
it's a
yeah.
Oh, I'm a
it's a
fan. I
good
want to go
time.
now.
Oh, it's a very, very cool, very, very cool store. It is the largest used bookstore and at least in the United States, I think maybe even in the world. Um, but it is a massive, massive used bookstore.
I mean, Powell's is
And
a block.
yes,
It is a city block.
it is a city block. It
Oh,
is a
holy shit. I want to go now.
yeah, highly recommend. Very, very fun. And
If
it
you're
has
getting
like
coffee, don't get coffee there though, because it's awful.
Oh, God. Maybe that's what
I
they used to keep
believe
the
that.
traffic running. They're going to shit themselves or they're going to be driven away by
The
the coffee.
bookshop is great. The staff there are wonderful. The coffee is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a used bookstore.
Also checking out of there is really easy.
Hmm.
Like it's really, really easy,
Hmm.
despite the number of people and size.
And there are TriMet stops on pretty much every side of the block
Yep.
if you want to get public transport instead of trying to navigate driving around downtown Portland.
Oh, they
Don't drive
actually
around
have
downtown
they actually
Portland.
have functioning infrastructure? That's weird.
Yes,
It's one of the things Portland is known for is the TriMet public transport. It's a good time.
and I highly recommend it because driving around Portland having used to live in Los Angeles, it is an exercise in patience.
Mm.
Mm.
It's just a lot
And
more blind. It has more blind corners than LA, and that's really saying something.
today's show is sponsored by Visit Portland.
Yeah, yeah. The city of
So
Portland.
moving on from promoting Portland,
Mhm.
Jason.
Hello.
So, before becoming producer of Around Grandfather Fire and editing Around Grandfather Fire and being the person who yells at Sarenth when he moves his mic,
Mhm.
when did you first discover the show, and how did you first discover the show?
I discovered the show actually, I believe it was through Sarenth himself, meeting up with people here I used to live down in Ann Arbor, and met up with kind of a local pagan group down there and met up with Sarenth and it's like, oh, we do a show called, Around Grandfather Fire. And for myself, when I was first starting kind of getting into paganism and mysticism and things like that, it's like, Around Grandfather Fire, that's a really good starting place. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get around to it. And then just sort of one day decided, it's like, I'm going to sit down, give it a listen. And I found it, I believe that first episode was I think it was actually on Landvatir, um, years and years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And it was just like listening into it, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I have absolutely no idea what any of this means. Um, And so I ended up from that point actually taking a little bit more of an interest, finding ones that it's like, oh, well, this means a little bit more interesting. This one's a little bit different. At the same time, primarily focusing on a couple of your previous guests, whether that was like Shan Wolf, Mother Multiverse, um, as well as I then had the privilege of actually meeting, hanging out with like Jim and Sarah and Caitlin and sort of getting to know them on a little bit more of a personal basis. So it's like start listening to the individual episodes. And then I just became a very consistent listener. And really it's like, yeah, some of the episodes it's like, oh, this is great. I'm learning a lot of information. I'm getting a whole lot. And there'd be a lot of times where it's just like, okay, they said a word there. I have no idea what that means. Um,
And now
um,
you work on it.
and now I work on it. It is very safe to say that like a lot of my foundational knowledge when it came to just interacting with mysticism um, and really practice in general has come from the show. Um, it's like obviously, it's like, oh yeah, I had a teacher, and oh yeah, this and the other thing, but it's like my general basis knowledge came from came from the show. Most
Mhm.
of the books I have in my bookshelf that are related to some form of religion or anything like that was a recommendation from the show, or sometimes occasionally a non-recommendation from the show. Um, where you go, it's like, oh well, this one isn't super great, but it's kind of a funny read. And then you go and you pick it up. It's like, ooh, they're recommending shoving your hand into a circle with a fresh cut on it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Don't do that. This is hilarious. Um,
Squeeze lemon on it too, just for the good effect. You got to have that power coursing through your hand.
yeah, yeah. Be sure to do journey work because it makes connections before you learn how to do shielding. It's a great idea.
Yes, you should definitely go out of your body before. No, please, please, fucking don't do that. But
Please, please don't. Please don't.
I'm sorry, I can't even keep a straight face for that bit.
Please, please no. Practice spiritual hygiene, people. Trust me, it will save you time
But don't bother
and
practicing
money.
discernment. Don't learn to.
Oh, yeah. Well, and discernment's kind of interesting because discernment is. I've seen this question come up a couple times.
Mhm.
Is such a unique topic in the fact of how do you know that, like, it's like, oh, the general, how do you talking to, is it a sock puppet? Is it something that you're talking to yourself in the back of your head? Like, is it actually real sort of thing? And it's like, getting past that level of discernment, it takes time, but once you're there, and once you kind of have that, it's like, cool. Okay, now what is it that I'm talking to? It's like, well, did you go out with direction trying to talk to something in specifically? Because if you reached out to a spirit specifically and you got feedback, chances are it's that individual that you reached out to. However, if you have like a more of a general practice, or if you're maybe doing divination for someone, it's like, well, I'm getting information. Where's it coming from? Somewhere. How do you handle that discernment? And I find that question to be very interesting because sometimes that's an incredibly easy answer. It's like, oh, well, sometimes you get the feeling of like, oh, this is someone's ancestors. Like this feels like ancestors. The answers that are giving are very ancestry focused. And you just kind of get the vibe for it. And then you can also have other times when, let's say, it's like, it's just completely coming out of left field where it's like, I don't know who's talking. I don't know who this is. Do you work with this person? And you kind of have to go off your either gut as the reader doing the divination or just having a good open dialogue with the person that you're communicating with. And I feel like that's also very important. And I feel something that isn't really talked about, particularly when it comes to things like divination, is having an open dialogue with the person you're doing the reading for. Like, it can sometimes help fill the gaps of the actual reading itself because you may go, these are all positive signs, and that person's breaking down about something and you're like, I don't know what's going on. It's like, oh well, the robin represents my grandmother in this and that in a specific way, so this is very similar to how she would talk to me, which then makes the reading, like, it kind of may clarify some things in the reading while also making it more fulfilling.
So I guess to just kind of pause and rewind a bit and get one of the sort of cliche questions out of the way, because you've mentioned divination and sort of in the AGF community, you're known for chaos magic and luck
Mhm.
magic and all these different things. And Sarenth mentioned the Toys of Dionysos. How did you originally come to paganism, mysticism, and things?
So I came to paganism kind of through a weird route. I can definitely say that I ended up here in a bit of an odd way because I grew up very Roman Catholic. Went to Catholic school, very much so. Go to church twice a week. You know, God is great. Everything like that whole caboodle in small town America. So just kind of all the things that are associated with that positively and negatively. Um, And then when I was getting older, I switched to becoming very much so a stout atheist. Just like none of this is real because you can't prove any of it. And I was a big science head and, very much so ran that, very early 2000s atheism trend that kicked off because it's like, why? It's like, well, nothing can be proven, so it's not real. Um, and then was very much so, as I got older and kind of a little bit more tempered with it, it's just like, I don't really know what it is, so a little bit more agnostic. And then I met Corinne. I met my now wife, and I would tell her stories of things that, it's like, oh, I had this quirky thing happen, and she's just like, that's not normal. That's that's not how things work. And my Corinne, my wife, she is a practicing Wiccan and also now also lightly a Kemeticist. Um, and so she was kind of like, hey, maybe it's compared to these being random chances, maybe they're spirit focused. Maybe there's something a little bit more here. Maybe just entertain that idea. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but maybe. She's kind of like, and she very much so like slow walked me into the idea that spirits at least exist. It's like, well, you can kind of like that thing you felt in the weird random place and the why you're, terribly afraid of places that are haunted might be something. Maybe you want to think about that. Um and oh, um and oh, that's funny.
Sorry,
Sorry, I
sorry.
prepared something. Um and then so from there, then when I moved back to Michigan from California, um I got a job working at a place with who would then become my teacher in multiverse and my very good friend of mine, Malik Odinson. Um, and Malik Odinson and I then started working with Mother Multiverse on metaphysical means. Again, it was kind of like a, hey, we're all telling fun stories, and everyone's like, kind of has these things, and Mother Multiverse is like, hey, those are like metaphysical things. Do you want to learn more? And it's like, sure, why not? What could it lead to? Um, and
Famous,
that had
famous last words.
famous last words. And then for myself, I really jived with the chaos magic side of things. Again, I was coming off of being an atheist, so it's like, oh, worship deities, and it's like, maybe not. Um, we'll see. We'll get there. Maybe one day. We'll work with smaller spirits because I was when I was learning chaos magic, I was taught animistic chaos magic. It's like there are still spirits, but you need to be respectful and you need to learn how to handle this correctly. Because the last thing you want to do is go in and be like, this is someone else's culture, but this works, so I'm just gonna rip it wholesale. Don't do that. Um, Go in there, try to understand it, and then if you understand it, then maybe work with it, talk to people that are doing that practice, and kind of see if it fits, or see if it is just like, hey, this is a good practice. Is it acceptable for me to continue this practice? Yes or no, and just having that continuous open dialogue. This is around about the time that I started doing luck magic because I have always been known for being uncharacteristically lucky. Whether that is uh, being at my absolute poorest point in my life and finding $20 on the ground to making sure I have food for the rest of the month, or someone hitting my car window, and then coming a guy, just a random guy, pretty much going by like, "Oh, I can fix that for you," and just guy fixes it just out of goodwill for no particular reason, and then disappears off into the night. Um, and a lot of just like small things that is just like, yeah, that doesn't happen to normal people. So I tried to look up luck, and then looking into luck, I found that it is a very, very, very complex and complicated thing that has, for pretty much as long as people have been talking to one another, it's almost a societal just staple because sometimes things just happen and people don't really have a good way of describing that. And sometimes better things happen to people more often, and sometimes other things happen, and it becomes such a cultural fixation in basically every culture that has existed and continues to exist. So then looking into it, it's like, okay, well, what are the common features? What are the common factors? Like, obviously, there's a very high tie-in with fortune. There's a very high tie-in with currency. And it's like, why? Because, oh, well, that person must be lucky. They have money. It's like, oh, wouldn't you call them fortunate then? And then it gets into, from there, you get into a wild amount of nuance. Um, and then it also then becomes societal based. Do you have this idea of Are you lucky, as an individual just because of the people that you have around you? But oh, well, does that mean you're gregarious? Are you actually lucky, or are you putting in the work? And the answer ends up usually being it's kind of yes. It's kind of just this idea that you may have put in the work and sometimes it doesn't pan out, or sometimes someone puts in barely any work and they get the moon. They just happen to be at the right place at the right time. They happen to say the right thing to the right person. Everything just kind of happens in such a small vacuum on an individual scale. And then on the larger scale, we can see this happen all around the world in every culture. It's just like, well, what causes this to happen? Now, there is, of course, a spiritual element to this. For that is the other fun coincidence, is that a lot of these things tend to be like luck tends to be at the very, very least folk magical. It's very much so just like the locals know, hey, don't walk under a ladder, that's bad luck. Don't break a mirror, that's bad luck. Don't, things of that nature. Don't chase if a wild chicken runs into your house, don't chase that chicken out. It's going to chase everything, chase the bad out, it's going to chase everything out with it. Things like that. And this really creates a unique idea that because but luck by inherent nature is sudden, or it tends to be very unexplainable, it leads itself into being more metaphysical in interpretation. I hope that makes sense.
So if we're looking then at kind of luck and fortune and fate,
Hmm.
how do things do you have a kind of philosophical framework that you're pulling from? I know Sarenth introduced you as a polytheist who pulls a lot from ancient Greek religion. And of
That is
course, the Greeks have all kinds of things to say about fortune and fate.
Oh, yes, they do. Um, I will say for a lot of my Hellenic practice, I follow Bacchic Orphic teachings, specifically. Well, I would say mostly Dionysian. I actually have been reading the Waters of Mimnesine. I cannot remember the author's name right now. It's a fantastic book, but it's more Apollo focused. Bacchic mystery, Bacchic Orphic focused, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's a great book. Um, and it offers a really nice and kind of refreshing perspective on that particular topic. Um, and as far as like philosophical, um, I will freely admit I am Gwendolyn Reese. Thank you, Emily. Gwendolyn Reese is the author of that book. It's a great book. Gwendolyn Reese also has another book that is fantastic, focusing more on like individual how to handle like spiritual heroes, particularly out of the Grecian field. Great, genuinely, Gwendolyn Reese. Both of her books are fantastic. Highly recommend. Um, as far as like philosophically, I don't really have a great anchor, but that's because I will freely admit I am not much of a philosopher. Um, um, a lot of how I tend to interpret these sorts of things, particularly when it comes to luck and fate and how that intertwines with my practice. Because I will say I tend to keep my chaos magic is more of how I do things, whereas particularly as I've matured into being more of a polytheist, it's more of the Bakagorphism is my religion. It's the way that I mostly conduct my spiritual self. It is the goals that I seek to obtain are more Bakagorphic in nature, whereas the how that I do them tends to be more chaos magic. Does that make sense? Kind of
I
the
mean,
actual physical practice versus the actual functionality of it all.
I mean, that's interesting because when people look at the Bakagorphic mysteries, that's kind of the esoteric mystery cult that people would have as kind of extracurricular to their Greek religion. Whereas
Mhm.
you're saying that is your main religion.
That absolutely. And I will admit, part of this is because of the fact that current mainline um Hellenic traditions are closed practices. Um, a significant portion of them are like pretty much all home practices of that are completely closed, unless you are have a direct familial link. It's kind of frowned upon to practice them flat out or outright. So you have to lean on something that is historical in nature or is more cultic in nature, such as Bakagorphic. Um, and this is pretty much just a way to prevent stepping on anyone's toes. And of course, this is how, if it's currently how it's being practiced, that's great. I would love to hear more about it, but it's not really up for me to say or interact with that. Um, and so because of that, I've started to lean more. I've just full on leaned more into the cultic side of it. Cultic? Cultic is not the right word for that. Just the Bakagorphism.
I mean, I'm aware of the kind of nationalistic Greek groups who kind of push that ancient Greek religion should be for ethnic Greeks. But I mean, otherwise, you see loads of pagans of varying sorts kind of engaging with ritual worship of different gods and spirits and ancestors from the ancient sort of Hellenistic world. So it's kind of interesting that you view that as being closed and sort of focus on the kind of Bakagorphic esoteric sort of extracurricular thing as your main kind of foundation.
Yeah. Frankly, I just for myself and the other couple like Hellenic people that I typically interact with,
Hmm.
um, it's just kind of always been that degree of separation that we've just had.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of the sort of the circle that I just run with is also, they also practice Bakagorphism.
Hmm.
And because of that, it just the idea of going and looking into more traditional handlings of that just hasn't really been there. There hasn't been much of a need, for lack of a better way of
Hmm.
putting it. Like I have a good amount of fulfillment with my current practices. So I just haven't really had the need to look in more into that. I
Hmm.
do know that there are people that do obviously practice um other forms of Hellenic practices, but
Yeah.
frankly, this is the one that kind of fit for me, and
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
one that I'm going with.
It's the hat you got and it fit first time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and I,
then,
oh, sorry.
oh no, I was just going to ask. So then, kind of, when people think about esoterica and they think about mysteries and occult and such, I imagine for a lot of people looking at it on paper, Orphism and chaos magic are probably at polar ends of the scale, whichever scale you happen to be drawing on the piece of paper. Like in many
Hmm.
ways, you would view Orphism and chaos magic as kind of polar opposites, where chaos magic is this kind of 20th, late 19th century thing of do what you want and the ends justify the means and we're creating magic and etc.
Right.
Whereas Orphism is, as I said, this kind of extracurricular thing where by day you're petitioning Zeus and Athena and whoever, and then you go and do all these magical rites and things. That's kind of
Hmm.
the flip side of that coin. And so it's interesting. How are you balancing kind of Orphism and chaos magic there?
Well, and that's why I've always made that's kind of why I made the distinction of chaos magic is the way that I practice. That's the way that is the thing that I do when it's like, hey, someone needs a reading from me. I don't usually lean into what I've learned through Bakagorphism to do a reading. I go into the chaos magic side. I grab the tarot deck, I grab the oracle deck, I grab, um, I grab the tool that I need to do the reading. I've got a yes no coin here that golden yes no coin that I keep on my desk. It's like why just for spot reading. It's if I need someone needs a yes no, I flip the coin a couple times and go for it. Why? Because that works. And that's why I say, and then the Bakagorphism is my religion. That is the thing that you know if I need inspiration, if I need uh guidance, if I if I need to contact someone, I go through either the folks I know through Bakagorphism, or I lean into the teachings of Bakagorphism as a way of guidance and a way of kind of a way of living, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's, and that's really been kind of my focus, is the idea of it is okay to have a practice that doesn't completely line up with your religion. That's okay. Because of the fact that the two, yes, the two are complete polar opposites. As you said, you have, the chaos magic, late 19th, early 20th, and has been through 1.5 million different renovations, and is for as good as it can be sometimes, is also as awful as it can be sometimes, because sometimes it does just pick and choose and go what works. And you said the ends justify the means style. You have the idea of the servitors, then this and then the other thing, and it's just a bit of a hodgepodge mess sometimes, most of the time. Um, and then you have something that is so rights dedicated. It is so specific in its information that how those rituals line up, and how that interpretation and uses of those things line up religiously, don't really interfere with one another because they're so different. Like the idea of you can do this practice with chaos magic, but yet you still have the religion basis. Now, are there things I can do in that religious basis that would satisfy the uses that I currently do chaos magic for? Absolutely. Absolutely. If I wanted to do readings and provide a yes no, understanding of something, or or even just, determine some more nuance, I could absolutely. I could work with I could work with the ball, I could work with astrologoi. I could lean into these different practices and understandings to come up with an answer. I absolutely could. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to make sure that what I'm doing, what I'm using those tools for, and what I'm using what that specific things for, line up with the religious context correctly before I use them. Because I may have a generic tool to get things done. I've got a coin to do a more generic reading. But if I'm going to do work, like if someone needs to consult Apollo, I'm going to use a Bacchic Orphic method to consult Apollo. I'm not going to use a standard divination deck. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense. One thing that I thought was really interesting was when you said that your magic needn't align with your religion. Could you elaborate that? 'Cause that's a really interesting sentence.
Sure. And I think a lot of it, and I will say, this is a lot of it because of the fact that I started as a cast magician first. I didn't come from the idea of, oh, you have this, there's a spiritual framework and that's where you're operating out of. I came from, well, figure it out yourself. How much weight can how much weight can Jason pull in order to actually work and do things? And how does it work? Well, how well do you think it works? How well do you understand why it works? And that answer is, and particularly when I was first starting, the answer is, well, it is working. So as long as I don't think about it too hard, it works. And really, it was coming from, a lack of a way of putting it, very early on. A lot of my practice was coming out of the idea of it's working. So why are we questioning it in the first place? But past that, as I've started to practice, as I started to practice Bacchic Orphism, and as I've really come into my own as more of a polytheist, it's like I for an absolutely long time I had this question of how can I justify doing chaos magic because of the fact that, well, now I can tie it into specific spirits. If I'm doing a reading, I can. It's like, oh, you want to do a reading, on the future? Why consult Apollo if you want, or the Fates, or an Ange? There's option. There are options. There are actual spirits involved with these things. So how can I, as a practitioner, go, well, it's just me doing this stuff, or it's just this doing this stuff, and a lot of that boils down to the idea that individual spirits themselves, whether they be you, me, Emily, the ancestors, whether they be of lineage, hero, uh, or blood, you know, they all have their own voice and they all speak their own way. But I like, for example, I know I can do a reading and get in contact with my blood ancestors. None of my blood ancestors practice at all. Like I have no ancestry coming out of Greece at all. So, but I can still get an answer out of it. So how does that work? And a lot of it boils down to spirits, and this is kind of the more of the answer, I guess what it is like spirits exist what inside or outside of your religious context. And because of that, the practice itself does not need to be if the goal is to interact with spirits and to get an answer or to interact with them in a positive, any other sort of positive interaction way, or just to have this sort of mutual or just mutually beneficial way. It is important to know that the spirits that all because my religion says this doesn't mean that that's 100% right. And that's kind of where the practice comes in, is the practice sort of catches the rest of it. Whereas the religion is for, this is what I believe, this is what I focus on, this is what I work on. But that is not all encapsulating. And that's okay.
That's really interesting. I think your way of phrasing that was really interesting too. Kind of have to kind of mull that over. Um, so it sounds like a lot of this is a battle between a kind of Western atheism going into chaos magic, then going into discovering all this ancient Greek stuff and kind of trying to adapt everything as you're going along, because obviously you still have everything you've learned and experienced along the way.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Uh, it seems like uh, once upon a time, you asked me a very important question that actually it messed me up for months, which was, where do you fit in your own cosmology? I
Ooh.
will never forget you asking me that question because it stumped me. I had no answer for it. And really the way how I ended up coming to the conclusion with that particular question, and the reason that it kind of ties into the question that you just asked, is as an individual practitioner, I work primarily with Dionysus, Ariadne, Asterion, and the Dionysian toys, primarily. So because of that, I consider myself a member of the Bacchae. And that is sort of like the role that I find myself in. Or I strive to, maybe a better way of putting it, I strive to be a member of the Bacchae. Um, and because of that, I know that based off of, doing chaos magic and stuff like that, it's like, oh, well, there is this, but there are other things. So am I going to just dismiss these other things and other experiences that I've had and go, well, my religion must be it? Or do I go, my religion is where I am most comfortable. It is where I feel I most belong. It is where I feel really, it's where I get that sense of spiritual feeling and community. And to me, that's what religion is to me. That's what's like, why can I put faith in Dionysus, unlike I couldn't put faith in the Catholic God? It's like, well, I can put faith in Dionysus because I firmly believe that Dionysus has my best interest at heart. I I believe that my interactions with Persephone are leading me towards a better outcome when I die. And it really becomes about faith. Whereas I know that when I do other sort of practices, when I do divinations, when I work on discernment, when I help people with other spiritual issues, sometimes the tools that I have from my religion don't apply. because they're not part of my religion. If I'm over at Sarenth, I'm really not doing a whole lot of Hellenic stuff because there's a whole bunch of heathenry going on. And really, it's like, yeah, I could go with the same approach that I would to satiate the maenads and try to use that to, calm the revelry. I don't think that's going to go very well, though. I don't think that's going to work at a one-to-one. Whereas when those situations happen, it's easier for me to lean on my chaos magic practices and go, these are more universal. This is a bit more of a generic toolkit. Therefore, I can actually interact with them in a way because, frankly, I don't know a whole lot about heathenry. My interaction with heathenry is like, I know people that do it. Um, and I
It's
interact.
really easy. All you have to do is start brewing mead and buy some Grimfrost shirts. Don't
Shit,
worry.
you're halfway there, Jason.
I was about to say I'm halfway there. I love making mead. Um, mead sans hops. Oof. um, but I think that's but I believe particularly as a modern, I feel like it's definitely more of a thing with modern paganism, is this idea of knowing your stuff's not going to translate one to one. If you are dedicated and part of a religion, it's not going to be one to one when you're interacting with other practitioners. And that's okay. But don't try to force it through. Don't try to take it like, oh, I know that if I want to do luck magic, I can lean and work with, oh, I'm gonna blank on the name. Oh, La Fortuna, Tyke. Like, I could go from, if I want to interact with Tyke, I'm sure as heck not going to say, oh, Tyke and Freya, they must be the same individual. We're gonna work that out together. That's not gonna go well for anyone. Maybe you could string it along and maybe you can make it work, but I don't think that's probably the right approach to it when I can take a more neutral, when I have the ability to take a more neutral stance and then interact with heathenry through that lens.
Interesting. Especially because like the way that I tend to encounter a lot of folks in pagan spaces is they bring their gods, their magic, their tools, their etc. with them, right?
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things that I think distinguishes heathenry from other religions is it's the cosmological worldview, it's the perspective on the gods, ancestors, and Vatir. But from a baseline perspective, like if you're polytheist, and you have this in common, even though the nuances might be different. If you're animist, even though your particular nuances of animism might be different. There's still this shared baseline. Um, it's interesting that you take chaos magic as a neutral approach when I see it in so much dialogue. Um,
Hmm.
do you think it's neutral in terms of being like a lingua franca, or do you think like it's neutral in terms of being undedicated to a particular path?
I would say it's the latter. It's about the fact that it's not dedicated to a particular path. Because if you really go, nutso with it and go, I create my own spiritual network with chaos magic. You could go that route and be like, I have my own spirits, I have my own deities, I have my own thing. You can
Certainly, have seen it happen. Not
I've seen it as well. You can go that route, but that's not the route I chose.
Mhm.
Just because at this point we're kind of neck deep in the weeds of magic and mysticism, is it maybe worth discussing how you're defining chaos magic?
Sure, I think that's a very good call. So, chaos
Which is
magic,
also potentially contradictory for a chaos magician, but yes, go on.
fair enough. Um, for me, chaos magic is the practice of trying to understand the universal truths and factors of how the universe tries to best serve itself. To me, that's what chaos magic is. You're trying to understand how the universe works from the metaphysical standpoint. For example, my massive interest in luck, I approach it pretty much purely from that standpoint of I am someone from the outside looking in, trying to understand how luck works. That is the fundamental goal of what I am seeking to do with my inquiries into luck, is I want to understand how it works. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I'm just thinking, weren't you saying earlier that from a chaos magician's point of view, you don't care how it works, you just want the results?
When I was starting out in Chaos Magic, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. But with all things, my opinion has changed as I've practiced
Okay.
it over the, better part of over half a decade.
So this is kind of how you've adapted chaos magic yourself into where
Mhm.
you are now.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Because and part of this is because the fact that there's no universal modus operandi for chaos magic.
Hmm.
You talk to one chaos magician, another chaos magician, they're going to be doing it different.
Right. I mean, partly by design, really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's extremely modal. Some people really lean heavily into the servitors and spiritual development side of things. I really don't. I don't like the idea of building a servitor, or trying to make a spirit as like a form of a liaison for things. That's just not my personal style. But I do know others that they find that to be incredibly fulfilling, and they find that to work really well, and that helps them engage with other forms of religious practices. Again, because chaos magic is not a religion. However, it is spiritual interaction, because then there's also the complete other side where you may get a chaos magician that goes, everything is made up, absolutely everything. There's no such thing as religion. That's all a bunch of
Hmm.
malarkey. If you want to go
Hmm.
that, there are people that think that practice chaos magic, and
Hmm.
they go, everything is based off of will and based off of my exertion into this, into X thing,
Right.
and your focus into this, your focus into that, and then we create these things. We form an aggregore, and therefore we can use this aggregore as a way to manipulate and change things. And while that may not be what I personally believe, they can do some degree of magic. So therefore, is it completely bunk? And that's where it gets really into nuance of, well, what is chaos magic and how does it work? And that's why, for myself, this kind of gets into a couple different types of, chaos magic for myself. I am an animistic magician. That's why I've started to kind of take that title onto myself, because it's a very quick delineation of it. It goes, I practice chaos magic, animistic though. So I'm over in this bin. I believe in spirits. I believe in this, that's where I'm operating out of. Whereas you may come across another chaos magician that goes, no, I don't really believe that spirits exist. Or I
Mm.
believe that everything is one spirit and everything delineated down, because that's a whole other form of it, which for me is a little bit more Hinduism focused, personally. But the idea though, the one thing, then everything else is a derivation. Um, I find it to be very much so. Oh, why am I blanking on his name? Oh, it's discussed in the Way of the Six Paths. Way of the Six Paths, by the way, if you are looking to get into chaos magic, Way of the Six Paths is a great introductory book. Highly recommend.
Who
Um,
wrote it?
it is. Huh?
Who wrote it?
Oh,
All right, we can look it
Google.
up and put it in the show notes like professionals.
Yeah, it will be in the show notes like a professional, but I in the meantime.
We'll have to let our producer know to cut this bit out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh,
In the chat, which you can join by going to our Patreon and joining from the kindling tier above, Kundian says Vakta.
oh, I'm not finding the book. Where are you? Or is it Way of the Five
I
Paths?
got
Aiden
you.
Wachter.
Yep, thank you. It
Kundian
is
in
it
our
is
chat said
definitely
so.
it's definitely a bit dated, but it's a great book. Um, But it's a really good book of like an introduction to interpretations of chaos magic and the trying to follow the idea of understanding how the universe works.
Yeah,
Which
I've known some heathens get really into his writing and his books, which is really interesting because again, it's that idea of chaos magic and kind of as you were alluding to, the archetypal chaos magician or the stereotypical chaos magician or the cliched chaos magician is very it's will, it's projection.
mhm.
There's not a whole lot out there. There's just this kind of vague cosmic thing, and I can just pull on different strings and make stuff happen. And this is me using the chaos that is the cosmos to make magic do a thing.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how, and it doesn't matter why. We just get the stuff done.
Ab Absolutely. And as you pointed out before, when I first started getting into chaos magic,
Mhm.
absolutely, that's where I was.
So it's kind of interesting how you've had to kind of adapt and mold that and your understanding of it, and have kind of taken different things from that and left different things from that into
Hmm.
where you are now, in the same way that people who are, heathen or Wiccan or whatever can find Aidan Wachters' writing very approachable and accessible.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it boils down to is the idea of, well, and again, it's the question that you pose. It's where do you stand in your own cosmology? Who are who are you in the grand scheme of everything else? Where do you sit in that? And for me, over the years, having sat with that question, it's like, well, who am I? Well, I am, I have, I'm Jason Davis. I'm a polytheist. I work I work within Bach Orphism, and I strive to be a member of the Bachai. That is me as where do I send my cosmology? That's where I sit, and that's something I am comfortable with. And am I perfect? Absolutely not. Am I doing my best? Most of the time. Do I fail? Absolutely. But I also pass. So it's a mixture of the two. And that's leans into like another big concept, um, which is the idea of lived religion versus practice. I've really tried to, particularly lately, I'm trying to implement more and more Bacchic Orphic practices into my day-to-day life. I'm trying to make it more common for me to do these sorts of practices. And it's why? Because it's my religion. It's what I believe in. It's the thing that I can put faith into, that I know if I do this X, Y, and Z, I have faith that it's going to work. Whereas I find that better, for me, it's like, oh, well, you should light incense and you should give thanks to your ancestors and this and then the other thing, like kind of generic good practice stuff. I'm really bad at. Like it's like, oh, did you light a candle? Did you light a candle? Did you make coffee for your ancestors? Did you do this? Did you say hello to your Landvatir? To your house Vatir? Did you take care of that? Did you take care of them today? I'll tell you, I'm bad at that, and I usually don't. But I'm starting to become better at actually going and being like, okay, I'm going to, I have a community bowl that we put goods into, that I bestow positive things, whether it's just coins, whether it's um good bits of good tasting food, stuff like that, and I put it together. And then and usually I do it about every 2 weeks. Just because if I'm putting food into there, it can get a little mangy, and I also have a plethora of pets that are just like something smells in there and I want it. Um, and by doing this, I ended up becoming more of a traditional practitioner when it comes to Bach Orphism. And that really helps it because I'm trying to live my religion. It's like, whereas my practice is not entirely separate, because there are some times in which I have to do more Bacchic Orphic practices, whether those be celebrating holidays, whether that is performing specific rites when I need to, whether that's specific interactions with the toys that happen on specific days for specific reasons, and da 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 da. Um, And all in all, it becomes more. I'm allowing myself to become more consistent with my religion, while my actual chaos magic practice is something that I can just tinker with when I want to. It becomes the thing of, this is the stuff I have faith in. I know 100% is going to work, and I know that whatever research I do with luck magic, and I have over 55 pages of notes of just how luck works in different cultural aspects. And but I know I'm not going to get to the answer of how luck works, most likely within my lifetime. I know I'm going to die long before that's even remotely close to figured out. People have been asking how luck works since luck became a concept. And but I want to share my voice with it, and it's something I care about, but it's not something I exactly put my faith into. It's not something that I can specifically go and go, I put my faith in hands in, I with Dionysus, with Ariadne, with Asterion, I can go and be like, I have my full faith and confidence in them that things are going to be okay. I have my faith and confidence in Persephone and Hades to go, when I die, I will be judged in the house of Hades, and I'm comfortable with that. Whereas I know if I continue to just be a chaos practitioner, I will not have that sense of comfort, nor would I have the sense of community. Because every chaos magician is going to go, well, when we talk about it like this and we look at it like this, it's like, oh, wouldn't that work? And ooh, that's kind of neat. But then you just don't get that sense of sustainable community that something like Bacchic Orphism or heathenry or any other sort of religion can provide.
A lot of your statements on religion and the ancient Greek mystery cults that we've mentioned and chaos magic and stuff kind of remind me of something. In a book I was reading recently, The History of Mysticism. So if you'll indulge me, I kind of want to read a quote and get your thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
So for classical mystics, knowing how reality truly is and living accordingly is what is important, not the experiences that induce the knowledge. Mystics do not claim to discover new truths, but only to find the knowledge already expressed in their sacred texts of their traditions. Nor did classical mystics take the experiences as empirical verification or proof of their tradition's doctrines, or as authority for these doctrines. For them, these doctrines do not need any experiential verification. Such concerns about verification arise from modern empirical science. In fact, for classical mystics, the reverse is true. Scripture was taken as validating their mystical experiences. The writings of mystics only help to recover knowledge that already exists in foundational scriptures.
Damn.
What do you think of that?
Wow. And what book is that?
The History of Mysticism by Richard H. Jones.
Huh. One, I'm going to need to pick up a copy of that. That is a great quote. Holy crap. Ooh, what do I think about that? I mean, yeah. Frankly, the idea of understanding like this, maybe not known. I feel like known is maybe the wrong. I personally wouldn't use the word known because I don't know if the actual understanding of how luck works is known. I don't think it is something that can fully be known. Maybe one day, maybe when someone reaches an individual reaches enlightenment and they can fully understand and comprehend that person will know. That I'll say individual. Maybe it's not even a person. Let's just say individual. Will know. I may not. If I know a sliver of it, I'm going to be happy. If I can go to understand a sliver, I'd be happy. As far as, but I like the idea behind where they're getting at, where it's like it's not proving one way or another. It's not trying to approve or disprove the doctrine because the doctrine it doesn't exist outside of it, but it isn't something that they're non-reliant on one another. Is how I personally would interpret that.
Because it's really interesting to me that as someone who keeps repeating, I want to find out how this works, I want to understand these things, you have also gone sort of through chaos magic, which very much flies in the face of worrying about how or why anything works. That's
I
kind
think
of really interesting to me how you've kind of managed to do that. That's kind
yeah,
of like going, I hate spicy food, but I'm gonna go work in a Mexican restaurant.
kind of, yes. And not that I don't, I fucking love spicy food, but um, as far as, but yeah, I think a lot of that just become, fundamentally, I think that's just because who I am as a person. I identify very much so as a scientist. I have a degree in biochemistry. I've spent years in the scientific field. I genuinely believe in understanding something. It's actually what was one of the biggest things that drew me away from Catholicism was the way that I was introduced to Catholicism. The way that I was introduced with it was I was very heavily discouraged from asking questions about it. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Don't ask. Well, that. Don't ask. Literally during confirmation, I was made to eat mustard seeds because I would speak blasphemies by asking questions. That very much so. It's like, no, I believe in being curious about the way things work. I personally believe that that's important. So when I first got into chaos magic, it was, well, hey, look at this new thing I'm learning. It's working, it's working, it's working. But I eventually came to the thing of, well, why? Well, how? Yes, it's neat that it does the thing. And it's like, well, the chaos magic, I looked for years to get a good answer out of chaos magic as to why it works. And it's just like, well, you're pulling the strings of something big and cosmic that we don't understand fully. And I go, okay, that's not really satisfying though. And frankly, it just wasn't a satisfactory answer. It's like, why? Because we know that there's other spirits that sometimes work in contradiction to one another based off of what we've experienced, that there are spirits that actively work antagonistically against each other. And this is before, oh, sorry, by the way, if there's noise, the birds are having a little bit of a moment. Um,
That is okay.
oh, it's starting to rain a little bit outside, so they're just like, it's rain. Um, um, but because we know that spirits can work antagonistically against each other, the idea that you have this one thing and it's nebulous and it can pull different things, and it's like, well, that doesn't, why would it actively work against itself? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Why would something trying to best serve itself constantly actively inhibit itself?
I mean, that's a great question, but then I look at literally anybody anywhere, including myself, where I know if I'm going to live better, these are the things I ought to be doing. I I mean, existence
And
is
and sitting clutching a bottle of Mountain Dew next to a bunch of bottles of spirits isn't necessarily the thing you ought to be doing. So why does someone looking out for their own self-preservation do things that would actively harm themselves?
Fair, but again, this is also, we are people, and people make great decisions.
I mean,
Okay, so
that's kind of my baseline though, like because like if spirits are people, like to
Yeah.
me that kind of like answers itself in that regard.
Fair. Very fair.
so on that point of us being people, then having gone through Catholicism and atheism and chaos magic and being where you are now, how do you understand deities now and the divine?
Ooh,
Because that's quite a journey.
complicatedly.
Yeah, that's a journey going from Trinitarian monotheism to atheism to polytheism.
Yeah. And I think of the biggest thing with that is the biggest difference between something like a person, a human, and a deity is like, one, humans have the potential to become a deity. We've seen hypothesis is that I'm using that. I hope I'm using the right word for that. I
Apotheosis,
believe that's
close
the right word.
enough.
Apotheosis. Yeah, sorry, my accent butchering the word. That's okay.
It's all good. It usually requires you to die though.
It usually requires you. Usually requires you to die.
Apotheosis, that is not correct pronunciation.
It is not. God
Apotheosis.
damn it.
No, I mean apotheosis requires dying. Correct pronunciation does not require dying.
Oh.
Oh.
I mean,
Dying often
Fair enough.
inhibits correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. But sorry, you got me giggling. Um, uh, but the idea of in my faith, it is absolutely possible for people to ascend to godhood. So, what does it mean to, what does that mean? And really, it's like an individual holds within themselves individual power. Every single individual, as they exist, has a certain subset of power. And the biggest difference is really the ability to access that power and the ability to be that larger spirit, to hold that larger space really is the big difference for me. It is, so say you have something like if we go, with the Hellenic religion, it's like, okay, at first you had essentially the sky and Gaia, and they were purely connected with one another. There was no separation between them. And then they had children, and those children physically separated them. So we go, okay, who's stronger? Was it the two things that existed beforehand? Or was it Gaia? And I'm blanking on the name of the sky, and I'm going to be kicking myself in the butt later for not remembering. Um, are we going to say it is them? Are we going to say they are stronger because they existed first and they are the ones who produced everything that came
Are
later?
you talking about Uranus?
Thank you, Uranus. Yes. Are we going to say that Uranus and Gaia, you know, are they the biggest? Are they a deity? Well, they're bigger than a deity, obviously. They gave birth to the deities. But the things that they gave birth to, which weren't even the deities, they were the far precursors to the deities, are the things that physically separated them, making them, when they say that they are bigger than. And really, it kind of becomes I don't want to say it kind of becomes a nothing burger, but it kind of becomes a bit hard to really determine the difference outside of the ability to perform things, to perform feats of manipulation on both the physical world and the metaphysicalness behind it. It becomes the ability and power to do so.
It strikes me that after a time, when you're asking questions of, well, who's the most powerful, it eventually devolves into a Dragon Ball Z like argument of, well, Zeus went Super Saiyan 3, and that's how he conquered the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, occasionally we'll get this really interesting God tournament arc.
Right. And it's like, so what is a deity? A deity is just someone who has, whether naturally or through other means, has come into full utilization of what they are capable of.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we as individuals are derivations of those things. Because again, I firmly believe that every single person, and I would even include, I'm an animist, so technically even, you know, whether they be dogs, cats, whomever, technically, if we're going to go with a broad stroke, has the ability to become divine. It is just a matter of achieving whatever certain set of criteria it takes to gain access to that ability that lies within everyone. I say ability. I'm not too sure that's the right word. Latent energies. I don't know.
Words are hard, so are religious concepts, especially when you're talking
You
about.
really, really are.
So to me, it sounds like this is very much something you get more from your time around chaos magicians than your time studying kind of ancient Hellenistic mystery cult.
I would agree. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I would absolutely agree.
So that's interesting.
And I think a large part of that is also I've been a chaos magician practitioner longer than I've been in the
Mm-hmm.
Hellenic mystery cults.
Mm-hmm.
I really only started practicing Hellenic mystery cultists for now maybe 2 years.
Hmm.
Right.
you know, vaguely maybe two, probably closer to 2.5, honestly. But whereas I've been practicing chaos magic for, a few years before that, and again, and it's like, oh, well, what about Catholicism? It's like, yeah, Catholicism absolutely influences how I interpret things.
Hmm.
And it's not even like I'm throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I've kind of come full circle with Catholicism. When I said, oh no, this can't be real, this, that, and the other thing. When I came back actually into chaos magic, I had for a period go, am I going to become a Catholic again? Am I going to re-embrace that part of myself? Because, I walked away from the church. Am I going to come back to it? Because now I'm acknowledging that spirits exist. Well, that includes angels. That includes, that includes God. That includes the worship of Mary. That includes, the worship of Jesus. So how am I going to reconcile that? Am I going to go back to it? And am I going to, go and how am I going to address that? It's like, obviously, I don't have faith in this. When I did, like when I was younger, I don't have faith in this, but I believe in it. Does that make sense? Like, I believe that if someone is Catholic and they are truly devoted to the teachings of the Catholic Church and they
Hmm.
believe that they have a true religious experience,
Hmm.
I am likely to believe them that they had a true religious experience.
Okay.
Because who am I to devalue what they've experienced when I have had my own experiences like that when working with Dionysus and Ariadne and
Right.
Asterion? And really, it's like, oh, so that means you believe in them. It's like, yeah, I believe in the Catholic God. I just don't worship the Catholic God. I don't put my faith in the Catholic God.
So for you, faith is belief that is acted upon.
Correct.
Okay, that's an interesting distinction.
Because it's one thing to believe something. It's another,
Hmm.
like, I have full faith and confidence that aliens exist. I've never seen one, never interacted with one. The odds say that they exist. So I believe they exist, but I'm not interacting with them.
Hmm.
That's not where I'm putting my emphasis on. I believe that the heathen gods exist. Absolutely. Why? I've seen people do crazy things with the heathen spirits and practices. It's amazing. I don't really put my faith in them. Why? Because I'm not. That calling isn't for me. At least it certainly isn't right now.
There's kind of a thread running through here. Um, I'm kind of struggling to verbalize how to go about asking this, but it's kind of interesting looking at how you're kind of going, well, if I subscribe to X, then Y and Z are part of this. But also, if I subscribe to X, I know V and W are next door, but I don't necessarily have to believe in V and W.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Like you went, I'm into spirits now, so therefore I must be into angels. I'm into the Greek gods, but that doesn't mean I'm into the Norse gods.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's the
how
idea.
are you navigating that, and what are you see? Where are you drawing the differences between these are distinct separate boxes and this is a package deal?
Hmm. I guess for me, the way that I would describe it
Hmm.
is the fact that if someone is practicing something, if someone no, not practicing, if someone has belief in
Hmm.
something,
Hmm.
and that belief has made a genuine positive impact on that person's life, I have no reason to believe that it's not real, that it's not a thing. I just don't. If someone goes uh, to use the most extreme example, and they go, I
Hmm.
believe in the flying spaghetti monster,
Hmm.
and I follow the teachings of the flying spaghetti monster, and because of that, I am a better person, and they are actively actually a better person. I have to go, well, maybe they're interacting with some random flying spaghetti monster, and that has improved their life. And I'm going to have, and as an individual, I have to go, that is okay, and that's fine. And I go, yes, there are these larger boxes of larger, more constructed religious practices, such as heathenry and Bacchic Orphism and Gallic religions, and there's all these different things. And it's like, yes, they're all very different, and in some cases they're the same, in some cases you have crossover. It's all kind of a mess. And have to go, it's like, well, then why do I draw a box around it? And I go, because I can't worship all of it. I can't put my faith in all of it. And so the ones that speak to me the most, that's the one that I've chosen. If that changes one day, then it changes, and that's okay. But for the ones that I have faith in, that's what I'm following right now. That's my religion. That's where I see myself. That's where I see myself in the future. This is where I see myself in my community. Like, and here's the thing: this is completely different than even my closest part, my partner, the person I love and married. We have very different ideas of what's going to happen once we die, and that's okay because we won't know until we die.
One of you will be in an afterlife realm, and the other one will be reincarnated into Portland, Oregon.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what I'm hoping for. Or I'll be in the
And
rose gardens.
yeah, because you never know. It's I may escape the wheel, and Corinne goes Corinne goes to the fields. I don't know. Obviously, I would want to spend my afterlife with my wife, but it's like, yeah, but we're approaching it differently, and that's okay. Because
Right.
it's not all about how you die, but it's like we have different practices.
Yeah.
I put out, wine and light incense and this and the other thing for my spirits, and Corinne gives them water.
Mhm.
And these are equivocally the same. It's like, why? We're both doing some form of devoted work for our religion, and yet they're different, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, then why am I putting them in specific boxes? It's like, just because I can't wrap my head around doing it all.
Right. Well, I mean, at some point there has to be like a process of what is this thing? How do I categorize it? Even if it's an arbitrary definition, even if it's arbitrary lines that occasionally get blurred or blown apart, you
Mhm.
got to be able to looking at the totality, at the sum, and being able to pull back like that all the time. It's virtually impossible even for people who do this shit regularly, and that's all they do. Um,
Mhm. Um,
Go ahead.
like one of the things that when I was very very early on trying to understand when I was trying to understand animism, I learned the thing of, when it comes to animism, you have to decide how small you're going. You as an individual need to decide how small. At what point do you say animism stops here because it's just not worth trying to understand it? Does
Mhm.
every atom in the universe, does that have a spirit?
It's actually funny you mentioned
Animistically,
that because I made that point during my recent workshop on talking about cosmology. Like, I can believe these are ensouled, but can I relate to them?
right? Exactly. You know, I may go, I may go and like, yes, hello, cat. Um, I can go, yes, I'm my cat Ash here. I can go, Ash has a spirit and a soul. I can say that pretty full confidence, yada yada yada. I can go, can of soda. Why not? A can of soda has a soul. Why not? Maybe not, maybe a very quiet one,
Can a
but let's
soda?
see.
Yes, a soda can.
Yeah, exactly. But am I going to go, well, then, the carbon dioxide molecules in the water that's within it, and this, and then the other, and the additives, and this, then the other thing, the food coloring dye. Am I going to go, each one of those has each an individual's soul? I mean, maybe as a collective, you know, you have to decide how small you're going. And when it comes to why am I putting, when it comes to applying to the data things, it's a very similar thing of, eventually I just have to draw some lines
Mhm.
and go operate within that understanding. Like, I still have while I probably primary religion is, really Bacchic Orphism, and I've really leaned into that. On my altar, I still hold space for the gods I worship out of Irish paganism, for Manannán Mac Lir and Morrigan. Like, I still hold space for them. Why? Because I worship them very distinctly at one point and still do, just really to a much lesser extent. And I go, oh, well, why don't I pile these together and this and the other thing? It's like my personal, individual Jason practice. Yeah, I can put them together and that's fine. But if I'm doing Bacchic Orphic specific work, I'm not going to call in Anne Morrigan and Manannán Mac Lir. Just as if I'm doing, in the rare, very rare occasion I do Irish paganism work, I'm not going to call in my Hellenic deities. Because it's important to just have some degree of distinction. It helps rationalize, it helps draw, really, it just kind of helps draw borders in between what approach you should take to things.
So, kind of changing track slightly.
Mhm.
At what point, when you were kind of getting into all of this, did you decide that you wanted to sort of engage with the community rather than it just be a personal thing for yourself? Kind of at what point do you start doing divination for others? Do you start interacting with the community rather than sitting at home and going, yeah, no, I know what I believe and I know what I can do now?
I became incredibly lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had just come out of a very bad situation, really metaphysically. Like when I started to go and really believe in spirits. Again, I was coming off of atheism. When I really said, "Oh my God, this is real," I had a full-on crisis of faith. I'm like, what what do I do? What do I do? I thought when I died, that's it. Now what? I just thought, nothing mattered anymore. Religion, funerals were great, but it was meant for just a grieving process. Well, now funerary rites are important again because they have spiritual context to go along with it. It's all of a sudden things became things that I had written off as innocuous just weren't. And I then felt incredibly alone. And that loneliness. And here's the thing, I was still being like, I had friends and I had my teacher and I was still learning. But even then, I couldn't relate to what they were doing. They either had years of experience or just had a natural talent that I didn't have. They had this ability and understanding and just a general comfort in what they were doing that when I tried to emulate that, I just didn't have that same response. It was very, very lonely. And so I took it upon myself to figure out, well, what does a religious community means to me? What does spiritual fulfillment mean for me? What does it mean to me? And step by step, I came into better understanding with that. Like, for example, I know I'm pretty good at divination. I have a knack for it. The cards fall the right way when I need them to, and I can understand the general story that they're trying to say, despite the fact that I'm just throwing cards. Really, if I look at it from the purely blank thing, I'm just throwing cards down on a table and looking at the pictures and making up, putting together a story. Really, if I'm looking at it from the purely physical aspect, that's all I'm doing. But I know it's like, well, no, but I have a pretty good knack at this. I'm getting the story. I'm getting information that maybe wasn't told to me, by the individual that I'm doing the reading for. And then slowly built up confidence and slowly built up better understanding of going like, oh, well, because I will freely admit, I tried the first deity I reached out to that I had a form of quote unquote conversation with was Loki. Was the very first one out of everything. Um, and really what it's like, oh, well, then why didn't I go into heathenry? It's like, because I started a little bit into heathenry and went, none of this makes sense to me. None of this clicks. None of this feels right. I don't even know what it was supposed to feel like. but I knew that it wasn't right. So then I looked a little bit into Cometicism, and that was a very hard line. No, this is not for you. It was very clear. It was very, very clear. And then I looked into Irish paganism, and I had some traction. I kind of understood some things, and things started to kind of get a better understanding. And I was going through the Irish pagan school at the time. And then the Irish pagan school ran into some issues. And that's all I'm really going to say about that. And at the same time, I'll never forget, I was walking through a used book sale with my wife. And I came across a large collection of like the Penguin edition Greek plays. I came across like a whole set of them, and my brain was alight and buzzing. I'm like, oh, there's something here. And I pick up the Bacchae, the play of the Bacchae. And it the understanding that came from me reading that and the experience I had while reading that play was like, oh, this is it. This is the thing. I understand this, and I wish I could put it in better terms, but I understood the point. I understood the why. I understood the spirit behind it in that moment. And then I reached out. Sarenth was able to help me reach out to some folks that practice Bacchic Orphism, and really, I took the class on the toys. I took a class on the Toys of Dionysos, and it's like, oh, this is it. I get this.
Oh yeah, sure. Blame me.
I asked you, and you sent me emails and names. You have no. I am blaming. I am blaming you. I'm blaming you for one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So I'm blaming you because by the time I got done with the toys, I felt like I had a community. I felt like I was really, I understood what to do and how to move forward. And frankly, I'm not inducted into, this was the toys class that I got was through the Order of the Starry Crown. I am not inducted into the Order of the Starry Crown at all. I'm not. I am not part of their specific cultus. I am technically exterior to that. But I know if I need something, I can ask them about it. I know if I come up and like, hey, I have these things or I've had this experience, I can talk with them about it. And I also know that there is a greater Hellenic community with other people that are like me. And I can go and I can talk to them about it. And really, it's just the feelings that I got the feeling that I get from interacting with the spirits, with the Hellenic spirits, specifically through the Bacchic Orphic lens, feels so right. It's the sense of community that I get out of it, and the sense of this is how I need to be interacting with these spirits because it feels right to me. It feels good to interact with them this way, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it feels right.
I mean, honestly, if you got all sunshine and rainbows from from these specific spirits, I want to know what drugs you're on because that's amazing.
Right. Yeah. No, not all sunshine and rainbow. Yeah. I've interacted with the Maenads. It's a horrible experience.
Right. Right. Same. Yeah. Not a group that I try to run into. I mean, you do you.
Yeah. Well, hey, I work with them. I also have three different devotional prayers for them, and one of them is for satiation.
Right.
One of them is to satiate them. It's like, why? Because, and here's the thing, these prayers that I have developed don't exist anywhere. They're not written down anywhere.
Well, they exist because you made them.
But they're written down now. And I've shared them with the other people that work with these spirits. And some of them have been like, that worked great. And other ones have like, I haven't tried it because I have my own interactions with them and they figured out their own way. But the idea is that the community exists.
Mm-hmm.
And the community exists and the spirits are fulfilling me in a way that I've actually gained spiritual fulfillment. I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm accepted. And as someone who grew up in the Catholic Church, I never felt this way. I never had this sense of acceptance and the way of feeling togetherness. And it never felt like, for lack of a better way of putting it, I never felt the way that the spirits actually wanted me to be there, like I have with the Bakagorphic practice. Um, I like everyone, I've run into imposter syndrome while doing practice. Everyone runs into it like I'm just sitting here doing nonsense, or I'm not worthy of doing this, that, and the other thing. And I got some great advice from someone, and they said you interacted with them and they responded, and you have had this relationship with them for X amount of time. What makes you think that they don't want to interact with you? You've done the work, you've reached out, and you really, it's like, and if they didn't want to interact with you, why would they have continued to interact with you? Just the same thing. If you pick up and try to call someone, they may not answer right away, but they may eventually answer. But it's about, I did call them and they answered. And that really made me not only believe in them, but then after working with them over those last 2.5 years, I have faith in them. I can trust them. And that did not happen overnight. That was doing a lot of journey work, doing a lot of divination, working with the community up until this point in which I can actually go, I trust them. I have faith in them to be on my side. And yes, sometimes they're big and scary and, rip you to shreds while you can't feel anything. But at the same time, I know that spiritually, they want me to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And if you go outside, you'll find people like that anyway.
That too. Hopefully not trying to eat you, but technically, hey, cannibalism is a crime for a reason.
Michigan's a strange state.
I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
we have Upers and trolls for a reason. Some of the trolls will eat your feet.
I've seen 8 Mile.
Absolutely.
So I guess like to kind of side tangent us a little bit. You've done a ton of talking and a ton of work around chaos magic, around Hellenic polytheism, and around luck and luck magic. Are you bringing out books? Are you working on projects? Where's this all going? Because I've heard you talk for quite a while over the years about, well, I'm going to start putting this together. All right, how's that looking?
Well, I have a Chaos Magic primer, an Animistic Chaos Magic primer book that is in editing.
Excellent.
It's written.
Excellent.
It is written. It is just an introductory. It started as a primer. It kept growing.
I know this feeling.
But it's just a summary of essentially how I practice chaos magic and how I interpret chaos magic. And it's like, oh, well, why am I just putting my stuff out there? Kind of the who am I? And the answer is there's very little out there about chaos magic. And the stuff that I've put into this introductory book is stuff that when I started chaos magic, I really wish I knew. And not just to do the thing, but also why it's important. Like grounding. Grounding's a very weird thing. I don't ground to ground very well. I can, but I don't do it very well. I ground to water very well when I'm doing energetic practices, and it's like, I feel sparky. I go drink water. That brings me down. Or the idea of shielding. Hey, what does that even mean? If you're not coming at this from any particular religious, if you're just going, I'm doing energy practice, I'm doing chaos magic. Why do you need shielding? Well, because if you encounter, again, I'm going at it from the animistic chaos magic perspective. Not everything out there has your best interest at heart. So knowing how to shield is important.
Mhm.
And things like that. Like, not only is it the brief explanation of these are things you should do before doing work, but these are things that you should do, and here's why. And I feel like that's important. And then eventually, I know, I mean, I know you just said, I know you said eventually a couple times, like, yes. And then eventually I will put together something with luck. I should write
Yes,
it
yes, you
to be an
should.
actual book.
I will bully you
It's
until you
just,
produce a fucking luck book.
I know, I know. Look, I have a large collection of data
With my eye
from a
spurt.
large, what?
With my eye spurt.
With my iceberg. Yeah, it's great. Or rabbit hole.
Mhm.
So the answer is yes, something I intend to probably by next year have the book out for Chaos Magic. I feel like even if no one reads it, I hope someone gets something out of it. Um, and
Wouldn't
then
that
luck,
require
the luck
someone reading it?
that does require someone reading it. That's a poor
Yeah.
phrasing on my part.
If
You're
no
right.
one read,
You're right. You're
if no
right.
one reads it, how can someone get something out of it? Because
Fair
then
enough.
someone's read it.
Fair enough.
Doorstop.
What was that, Emily?
Doorstop.
Doorstop. Yeah. Oh yeah. It'd be perfect. Not for large doors. It can't be a big gap. It's not the biggest book in the world.
Paperweight.
I believe in you, Jason.
Well, thank you.
Use it to
But
balance wonky tables.
yeah, oh, absolutely. It would look great in just a stack of used books piled up inside of some random bookshop. It'll be
I'm going to
great.
write a book. It'll look great in a pile of books.
Yeah.
That's the kind of optimism the world needs from our aspiring authors.
Right?
Yeah. Um, and then the luck book will follow. I've begun the kind of more brainstorm, like how the heck do I even start writing about this phase of it? Because that really is a lot of it. It's just like, well, what's the approach of this? It's like, uh,
So
do
are
we
things
talk?
fated or do we create our own?
Hmm?
Are things fated or do we create our own? Or both?
Oof. We're gonna file that under depends.
What does it depend on?
Yeah, please don't put that in your
No,
defense.
no. Also gross. Um. Anyways, so if we're gonna talk about like what's fated, what's not fated, the way that I have come to the understanding of fate in terms of how it particularly interacts with luck is fate doesn't care as long as you're working in its best interest. What its best interests are individualized and specific. Um, as far as like, oh, this was a fated event. I really like, I don't really believe in those personally. I believe it's like, oh, are you working the best to best help the universe move forward and continue forward in a way that is sustainable for itself? Then yes, good, do that. If not, then you're not doing that. So fix it, do something else. And that's where luck gets involved, where luck essentially acts as I use biological terms because that's my familiarity and background. There's a lot of different ways you can phrase it if you want to. Essentially, luck is the thing that sort of realigns a person into best serving fate. Which is why I also don't really believe that there's a difference in between good luck and bad luck. I believe that there is just luck, and I believe there is will. So luck is essentially the thing that sort of pushes things back in line. You know, it's like, oh, you took the time out to go actually write a chapter of that book that you're putting together to discuss this specific metaphysical practice. Congratulations, you're going to stop at a random gas station you never stopped at, and they're going to have a Choco Taco there available for you. Because, see, here's your treat. You did good. Whereas, it may be, oh, I'm stuck in this job, and because of that, I haven't really been interacting with my community. I haven't really been, really haven't been doing my part in a lot of different things, or just really I've been horrendously isolating myself. Okay, well, we're going to start by breaking your favorite coffee mug. It's just going to fall off your desk. And then you're going to go sit in your chair, and your chair is going to break. And you continue to ignore it, and you continue not to address the fact that your work's driving you away. And then you're going to go drive in your car, and all of a sudden your tire is going to delaminate while you're driving on the road.
So
And
if
eventually,
I'm, oh no, go on, sorry.
No. After you.
So if I'm following right in your framework, there's kind of a sense of kind of cosmic order and cosmic balance.
Mhm.
And then on the macrocosmic sort of large scale, things are fated. But then on the small individual day to day sort of speciated
Yeah,
micro scale, things are not necessarily fated, but then they
correct.
still fit into the larger fated scale.
Correct. That would be the way that I would interpret it. But
Okay.
the other important thing is that everything also has free will.
Hmm.
You can make a choice as to just not interact with it if you don't
Hmm.
want to.
Hmm.
Like if you go about your day and you go, oh, I could go to this thing, that I promised to go to, this, then the other thing, but I'm gonna stay home and binge Netflix instead. You know,
Right.
are you acting in line with that or you're not? To use a more extreme example, um, no one forces you to be texting while driving. So if you get into a car accident because you're texting while driving, was that a fated event?
At the
No.
very least, it was selfish stupidity.
If at the very least it was selfish stupidity. So, and if you're the person hit by, if you're the person hit by someone texting and driving, were you fated to get into a car accident, or was someone fucking around on their phone and not paying attention?
Mm.
For me, the answer is that person was fucking on their phone and not paying attention.
Mhm.
That is the thing that led to this event. And where luck comes in, and this is where kind of like luck comes in, is like, well, how did that event turn out for you?
Mhm.
Because if you want to go that route, maybe that's where you're lucky or unlucky. Maybe that's the part where it's like, if you consider yourself a lucky person, you get into a car accident and you walk away from something that you're not supposed to, I'd say you're pretty dang lucky.
So then, in this sense, is luck the kind of aspect of fate that we can uh get qualitative about and give a judgment to?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
The And then if you want to get quantitative about, and there is a way to get quantitative about it, for
Hmm.
me, that leans more into what is fortune,
Hmm.
because luck is something that can be observed, but is fundamentally intangible.
Hmm.
Whereas fortune is something that we can observe that is tangible. If you
So,
say,
so we have this kind of cosmic order and fate,
yep,
and then we have luck, which is the qualitative aspect of that we can put a judgment on, so it's good or bad or otherwise.
yep,
And then fortune is the physical manifestation of this.
essentially, yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's my
Hmm.
interpretation
Hmm.
of the fundamental order of fate. Like that's
Okay.
essentially the delineation breakdown. And then it's like, oh well, then how does that tie in with spirits? It's like I go and I look at we'll say La Fortuna, La Fortuna. The goddess of luck out of Rome, the Roman period, and we can go and go. Well, what does she bestow? She is specifically the goddess of fortune. It's in the name. You know, you pray for her for physical success. Success in battle, success in a good harvest, success in gambling. These are things that result in something tangible, result in good health. However, people are like, oh, well, you can also wish for her to be lucky. It's like, yes, you can. And because of who they are and the associations between the two, you can absolutely perceive that. But wouldn't it be better, in my opinion? It's like, well, she's really been more like based on what we have available. She's not really about luck. She's about getting something physical at the end.
Hmm.
It's about the physicality of it. And that's where I draw the delineation between them. Like, that's why. It's because fortune becomes something tangible. Luck really isn't tangible. It's about the things that just happen to work out in your favor, or the things that just happen. This was going to be a horrible thing, but you got a little bit lucky, and it wasn't all that bad in the end.
It's really interesting. So as we're starting to come up on 2 hours,
Hmm.
which has flown by, um, where can people go to find out about your writings when they are published? And where can people find you if they want to probe you further on different topics and questions and things here, aside from your wonderful work at aroundgrandfatherfire.com and
Well,
patreon.com/aroundgrandfatherfire and the Discord server that can be reached from aroundgrandfatherfire.com.
well, currently that wonderful Discord that you can join for free, you do not need to be a Patreon member to join,
Mhm.
is by far the best place to get a hold of me currently. um, I am working on putting together a more professional metaphysical connection thing right now. Right now, though, if you're like, Jason, I have thoughts and feelings, and I need to go yell about you about the fact that how dare you be a former Catholic and chaos magician? You deserve to be punished. Um, uh, you feel free to email me at jkdavis713@gmail.com. And I assure you, I will respond. Um, um, I check that thing way more than I should. And currently, those are the best places to get a hold of me. When I have something physical and published, I will post about it either over there on AGF, or I will find some way of distributing through the wonderful folks here that I could be like, how do you guys distribute information? Um,
So,
outside of that,
so,
those are
so emailing you or the Discord server, which can be reached via aroundgrandfatherfire.com, and you don't have to be a Patreon patron of Around Grandfather Fire to join the Around Grandfather Fire Discord server. But if you wish to be a Patreon patron, you can go to patreon.com/aroundgrandfatherfire.
Mhm. And if you wish to see all the bloopers for just going into the $5 tier, will get you access to a fully unedited version of this podcast.
And for the rest of our listeners, they'll be hearing the edited version of Around Grandfather Fire, which you yourself, producer Jason, have indeed edited and produced.
That is correct. And I believe at the current point in time, I believe I actually owe people a podcast right now. But that's okay. I will work on that afterwards.
So, Emily, where can people find the things you do other than that which is produced by producer Jason?
Streakingfate.wordpress.com. What about you, Sarenth?
You can find me pretty much on any social media as Sarenth or Sarenth Odinson. You can find me on my blog, which is sarenth.wordpress.com. You can find me on patreon.com/Sarenth Odinson. You can also find me on Substack at, hell, of course I forget, but I'm at Sarenth Odinson on Substack. So I'm on pretty much every social media platform you can want to talk with me on. If you want to hire me to write a poem or a topic, you can hit me up on my Patreon or my Substack.
What about you, Snow?
You can find me at snowthegoth.com, or I am also fairly around in the Discord server, which can be found via aroundgrandfatherfire.com, and you don't have to be a Patreon member to join.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking so much time out of your day, and especially at such last notice for coming on the show and spending time with us and explaining your understanding of luck magic, and all the meandering ways in which we have explored Bacchic Orphism, magic, and spirituality. Thank you so much.
Absolutely no problem.
We also want to really thank you for being our producer, for doing all the wonky behind the scenes shit and making sure that my levels sound correct and that the jerking around I do in front of the mic doesn't affect the sound quality too drastically.
Truly a Sisyphean feat.
Thank you. It genuinely, like, I will say it is definitely a joy to do. It when I kind of first discussed the idea of doing this,
Disgusted.
disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, genuinely, like the ability to do this and to actually be able to help out in the way that I have and continue to do so, genuinely, like, it's a treat. It's really, I find it, and I find it to be fun. I get to hear all the fun antics, before and afterwards, and get all the fun messages of, Jason, please edit this particular subsection out. Why? Because I think we just rambled for like 20 minutes about nothing.
Yeah,
And I go, Yes, or sometimes I go, nah, it's fine.
I actually appreciate when you make the executive decision to leave shit in, when we're like, we're not sure this fits, and you're like, yeah, that's nice. I'm the producer.
Mhm. But either way,
So I deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you to all of our listeners and our supporters. I want to thank you for joining us, and we see you next time around the fire.